Let's talk about all the books that I read in February. If you're new here, hi, I'm Anna. I usually do vlogs, but I really want to bring back wrap ups because I used to do them quite frequently and I love watching them. And I also love filming them. So let's see if I can manage to continue doing wrap ups throughout 2026. I have a massive coffee and I have 5 books to talk about. Winter is over, spring is here. It's my birthday month. I love March. So let's close the chapter of winter together in terms of reading. As I've said, 5 books in total. One of them I DNF'd, even though I only had about 70 pages left. Why not start with that one actually? I don't have all of these books as physical copies, but I do have this one, Madonna in a Fur Coat. I want to preface this very small review by saying that I have some hair on my lip. And also, this is, of course, highly subjective. I had to DNF this book because it was giving incel. I do like an obsession story, but in this case, it was too male for me. Sorry. This book is about a young man from Turkey and he moves to Berlin in the 1920s and he meets this woman and becomes obsessed with her. And she doesn't necessarily reciprocate these feelings. And she tells him multiple times that she is not interested in a romantic relationship. And it's not only that he doesn't accept this, but he keeps on telling the reader that something is wrong with this woman, hence why she doesn't be involved romantically with him. As a reader, we are experiencing the story from the main character's diary. So, of course, it's his thoughts, his feelings, and this is where we learn that he can't come to terms with the fact that this woman doesn't want to be in a relationship with him. And I can only take so much denial from a man who doesn't accept when a woman says no. That I at some point just had to take a step back and just put the book aside because I was getting quite angry. I am very unsure why this book is so popular at the moment, especially with women. I take great issue in the fact that this is being sold as a yearning love story. So you can find me in the comments. I am very open to discussion. I'm just not very open to this book. And that's why I DNF'd it. After Madonna in a Fur Coat, I needed a good pick me up. So I borrowed Lily King's Heart the Lover from a friend. And it was just the perfect book. That's the book that I needed after being put into a reading slump by Madonna in a Fur Coat. So, Heart the Lover was actually my first Lily King book. I'm so glad that I finally got introduced to her or introduced myself to her. Well, I was heavily influenced by my friend. And I loved the book. In terms of her writing style, I can see myself reading more of her books. The story starts at university. The main character, Jordan, she meets these 2 guys in one of her classes, and these boys live together, and she starts dating one of them. Things happen, and then she falls in love with the other one. And this is very much first big true love. Things happen, they break up, and years later, we kind of meet them again. Jordan is now a writer, a very successful writer, and the boy who she was in love with, Yash, they kind of meet again due to a very specific event, turn of events. I don't want to spoil it. I love the whole concept. I love a story where we meet characters at a young age and then later meet them again. I love the setting, them studying literature, her becoming a writer, even though it felt a bit convenient at times. I just loved how Lily King portrayed the love for literature in this book. To me, it read as very emotionally intelligent. I loved how she described emotions, especially the main character's emotions. Felt very sensitive, but also very respectful, if that makes sense. I have to say, the book has three parts, and the last part lost me a little bit. I can't really talk about why, because it would be a very big spoiler, but it includes a plot line that I don't necessarily connect with. Again, this is my very personal opinion. I still enjoyed this book so much. And as I've said, it was also the perfect timing for me, and it was exactly what I needed at that point in terms of reading. Even before Lily King, I was listening to an audiobook. I listened to Half His Age by Jeanette McCurdy. I had such a great time with this book. I feel like I heard a lot of mixed reviews on this book. Jeanette McCurdy, of course, was very successful with her memoir. I'm glad my mom died, which I still haven't read, but I definitely want to. Half His Age is a novel, so it's fiction. It's about Waldo, which I love the name. I love the main character's name. Waldo, she is a high school student and she falls in love with her English teacher, Mr. Corgi. Waldo lives at a trailer park with her single mom and they are struggling financially. Also, Waldo's mom is an alcoholic and probably also a love and sex addict. There are a lot of men that kind of come and go in Waldo's life and in her mother's life. And Waldo is just, yeah, what is she? Except for relatable. I don't know. She is a typical teenage girl dealing with typical teenage things, but also she feels everything so strongly and she's definitely struggling. She has an addiction to shopping, online shopping. She obviously is unfamiliar with healthy relationships, hence her falling in love with her teacher and also actually going after him. Quite a heavy topic. Of course, this book deals a lot with grooming and consent and responsibility. I saw a couple of reviews that criticized this book because it wasn't commenting on these topics, which I don't agree with. I think Jeanette McCurdy writes this character so realistically. And I think in that lies the comment on this relationship and this topic. I enjoyed the way that she portrayed this dynamic. And for a lot of people, I think it fell a bit flat. And it is often compared to My Dark Vanessa, which, yes, My Dark Vanessa has more of a opinion, I would say, that is being conveyed through the book on this student teacher relationship. But as I've said, I think Jeanette McCurdy did a great job portraying this storyline. I loved her character building. I also loved the tone of the book. That was something that was definitely a highlight of mine. I had to laugh out loud so many times, but it wasn't necessarily because it was so funny, but rather because it was devastating and absurd. And she is so good at summarizing very complex issues in one sentence in a very sarcastic way that I loved it. Um, yeah, I would highly recommend this book, actually. I had a great time. Also, Jeanette McCurdy reads the audiobook. So if you're interested and maybe you're a bit skeptical, you don't necessarily want to buy the book, maybe see if your library has it as an audiobook, or if you have Spotify, if you use Spotify, it's also on there. That's where I listen to it. Not saying it's a life-changing book, not saying this is high art, not saying this is intellectual, just saying that I very much connected to it and the way that she wrote about this. So, yeah. Finally, another book that I have with me as a physical copy. I bought this for my birthday last year, so it's been almost a year. But I finally read Disappoint Me by Nicola Dinnan. This was so good. This is about Max. She's 30. She's a published poet and grossly overpaid legal counsel for a tech company. And she meets Vincent. They meet on a dating app, I believe, and they start dating. And Max and Vincent are both from Chinese families who immigrated into London. And also, Max is trans. And this book deals with in how far Max's gender identity plays a role in the relationship, whether it being Vincent's family who might have a problem with their son dating a trans woman, or his best friend who is married and maybe also not quite accepting of his best friend's girlfriend. And then there's also another time frame in which we meet Vincent as a young guy after he finishes A levels and he goes traveling with his best friend and he falls in love with Alex, who's also a trans woman, and things get quite ugly between the three of them. So Vincent, Alex, and Vincent's best friend, whose name I forgot, but that's also okay because he's a shitty person. This book deals with heteronormativity, the question of queer people in relationships that are still very much influenced by heteronormativity, how to navigate that, how to be true to yourself, how to stand up for yourself whilst also making room for other people and being open to people who love you, how to deal with your family's expectations, whether it be about your job or about your love life, and also very much about what happens when you grow up and what happens to your teenage self when you grow up and how do you carry this teenage self into your adulthood. I enjoyed this book so much. It was very clever. I loved the writing. I always love a book about 30 somethings, about these young professionals living in London. And of course, I always love a queer story. And now I really want to read Bellies by the same author, which was the book that came out before this one, because I liked this one so much. So definitely going to be checking out Bellies at some point. And finally, I think this is the last book that I read in February. I read Greek Lessons by Kang. Kang, of course, received the Nobel Prize in 2024, and I had read The Vegetarian in, I think it was 2016. So I picked this up, I don't even remember when. It has been on my physical TBR forever. And I finally read. Can I talk? I finally read it. And I have to be honest, I think it went over my head a little bit. I was confused for the majority of time whilst reading this. I didn't really know where we were, what was happening, who was speaking. Overall, a very confusing experience. This book is about two people, a teacher who is almost blind. It's also about this woman who's taking this course who doesn't speak, and it's about them and their relationship, but it's also about both of their respective backstories and how these backstories influence their relationship. It is described as a love letter to human intimacy and connection. And it felt very existential when I read it, but again, half of the time I didn't really know what was going on. It felt very philosophical and more like a philosophical text rather than a novel, at least for me. I know this is quite popular, but I also know that a lot of people kind of struggle with it. So I'm definitely one of those people. I'm still glad that I finally read it and I didn't have a bad time or anything. It was a lot on the brain. My brain really had to chew a lot whilst reading this. Overall, a great reading month. I'm very content, even though I had one DNF book and I had one book that was not really clicking for me. But still, I'm happy that I read so many books in such a short month. I do have to say that I had a massive cold and I was home for a week. And I think I crashed Lily King's Heart the Lover in 3 days because I wasn't too sick to read, which is always nice. Let's see what March brings in terms of reading. I will try to do a wrap up at the end of March as well. I hope you had a great reading month. What was your favorite book? And my second question would be, did you DNF any books? I think we should talk about DNFing books more because sometimes I still feel there's a lot of shame around DNFing books. Let's deconstruct that together. So I will talk to you in the comments and I hope to see you very soon. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. And then we will see each other in the next one. Bye.